Whitecap is proudly supported by Sail Canada's BMO MasterCard. For every purchase made using the card, you win with no fees and cashback or air miles, and Canada's high-performance sailing programs get supported. This credit card is the card for Canadian sailors. Scan the QR code to get yours today. Hey, welcome to Whitecap Regatta Reports. Today, I'm talking to kitefoiler Emily Bugeja, who just finished 5th at the 2023 Formula Kite Pan American Championships in Cabarete, Dominican Republic, good enough to qualify her to be nominated for the Pan Am Games. Emily, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, nice to be here.
So first of all, congrats. Has the Pan Am Games been a big goal for you, or a checkpoint, shall we say?
Yeah, I'd say so. Kind of way back in 2014, I didn't really have any results in my opti career, so to speak of, but I've set a pretty lofty goal of going to the 2024 Olympics, and this was definitely a checkpoint on the way to that. I remember turning to my mom back in 2015, I think it was Pan Am Games swimming was on TV, and I turned to her and I said, I want to go to the Pan Am Games. And she looks at me and she's like, so what sport do you want to go in? And I was kind of thinking, well, there's one sport that I'm currently regularly participating in, and her kind of reaction was a little bit like, oh, that's nice. That's nice. She didn't really know what sport that I would go in, given my previous performance in sailing, that it was just as likely for me to go in anything else.
So tell me about the regatta. What did you need to do to qualify, and how did you do? First, we'll talk about Pan Americans, and then maybe back up and talk about Clearwater.
So this regatta was a little less there's a little less at stake, considering that there's 3 spots available here, and I was the only one competing for one of those spots, just because there aren't as many girls as men from the Pan American countries competing near the Pan Am Games. So it was a little bit of showing up and checking a box, but it was a great experience just being able to race against the other competitors. And there were some big waves and really light wind, which I've never really seen before. There's actually 2 of the days in the middle of the regatta were canceled because the committee boats couldn't get off the beach because we had 1.5 meter breaking waves on the beach.
Wow.
There's guys on short boards surfing in the break.
Oh God.
And so on the last day, actually, they sent us out. I got out and got in with a dry kite, which I was really proud of. But they had sent us in on AP over H, and they decided, okay, let's do one more race. And they sent everybody out. And it ended up that only one of the girls made it out to the course. My kite went down in the surf. I couldn't get out. And the other girls who did make it out didn't get to the start line in time because they're kind of stuck in the waves as well. And so one girl made it around the course, and the rest of us were little bit stuck, maybe came in with wet kites, and so yeah, that was definitely a challenge.
So yeah, let's go through Clearwater, because that was a bigger deal. You had to get your spot to go to Pan Americans. Is that what it was, or you tell me?
Yeah, so that was the internal qualifiers for Canada. So that was kind of our big Canadian girl showdown. There's 4 of us who are kitefoiling right now. We actually have a fairly strong fleet of kitefoil girls.
That's really cool. That's great.
We had all of us had been training for some amount of time or another in La Ventana before the qualifier. So we had all been working really hard. And I'd say that 3 out of the 4 of us are very even in our skill level. If you look at the world's results, it's actually completely backwards from where it was in Clearwater. We were all close together, but it kind of went it was Natalia, and then Mariev, and then me, and then that actually got flipped in Clearwater. And I'd say we're very even. I know that they have that they're definitely looking for a rematch in Palma and throughout this next year. So that was a little bit more of a stressful regatta, but the conditions were tough, and it was a lot of a mental game, just making sure that you're keeping your head in the right place.
Right. That's a impressive number of people, considering it's a first time event the Olympics and I think Pan Am's as well. Am I right?
Yeah, so this is the first time that
Yeah.
women's kiteboarding was in the Pan Ams.
Right, right. So that's a great number of people that are up. And but would you say, and this is not on my list of questions, but I think there are a lot of people kitefoiling in Canada, or at least kiting.
Yeah, so it's there's kind of a big barrier between racing and just like regular recreational kiting. A lot of that's the equipment's extremely specific, that you're taking like the formula kite, it's more expensive. You it's like I find racing fun coming from a sailing background, but a lot of people who do even kite foil, like they're a little bit more into the jumping, or they're more into the surfing, or they're more into just like doing it for enjoyment, or doing it for like some amount of like tricks or something. So yeah, there's a huge kiting community, and that's actually where the other three girls come from. They don't have a sailing background; they have a kiteboarding background, whereas I come from
Okay.
the sailing background.
So where is the biggest like community of kitefoilers in Canada? Like where would you go in Canada where you'd see the most kites going out sailing?
So there is Squamish. Um,
Oh
Squamish
wow,
is a big
okay.
one. Not a great place for race gear, but definitely a lot of people going kiting there. And I think there's a pretty big community in Toronto as well. Toronto has a lot of different beaches to launch off of, like be that Simcoe or Woodbine Beach, or just like they have a lot of different locations and a lot of people who kiteboard there.
Yeah. It's just something that I think that more people do. Like I say, more people do than we think, and it's an area where we should put more energy towards it. That's what I think. So I read you only started kiting about 2 years ago. So what's the process been like since then?
Um, So it's actually a long story. It's been a little bit more than 2 years, but there's been like some attempts and some failed attempts on the whole learning kiting thing. I started out in 2018 taking my first lessons. Never made it upwind on a twin tip, and then in 2019, the next year, Mac Morin, who's qualified to be nominated in the men, ran a women's kite foiling camp in Kingston, Ontario, because at the time the Olympic event was still going to be a mixed relay between men and women, and he was kind
Oh,
of looking around, being like, okay, I need to find some girls. Like I'd like to find some girls, so that if he's getting to the point where he can go to the Olympics, he could have a girl go with him. Kind of just like struggled with the kite and didn't really get up on the board at all for that the rest of that summer. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, uh, I showed up to the same kite school I went to in 2018 with a foil, and they kind of looked at me like, "You realize this isn't going to be any easier?" And I'm like, "Nope, but I want to race, so we're gonna try." And from then on, it was kind of like 10 hours later as an independent kiter, and past that, it was just a lot of time in Kingston. Mac Morin again would drive me when I was and babysit me in my beginning phases for launching in Kingston, kind of making sure that I stayed alive. So I'm really grateful for that. And then just like a lot of kiting every day through the summer, like as much as I could. Uh, yeah.
cool. Mac is awesome. He was on before and one of my favorite guests. So, will Pan Am Games be qualifying for an Olympic spot for for the country, or is there another?
Yeah, so the way that it's working for the qualification for the kite foilers is that there's 8 spots at the Worlds this summer. I will not be getting one of those spots. Highly, highly unlikely. The girls' fleet is extremely talented, especially in Europe and across the world. I was kind of blown out of the water when I went to my first Worlds to just see the talent of all these girls. Um, so unlikely, but the fingers are crossed that Daniela Moroz from the United States, the 6-time world champion, that she gets her Olympic spot there, which will then kind of open the door for the North American spot at the Pan Am Games to be won by Canada. So, so we're
Oh,
there's a
that's
little bit of
cool.
fingers crossed
That's good.
because she's a phenomenal kiter, as evidenced by her 6 world championships. And that would be kind of cool because it would kind of allow Canada to have that chance.
So I can't imagine she won't get a spot at Worlds. Um, and how many spots at Pan Am's?
One per continent, so one for North America and one for South America.
So you'd have Mexico and then some Latin American countries as well.
Mexico did not send a girl to any of the qualifiers for the Pan Ams, but there is a chance they could be allocated a spot. So they might be there, and then there's the chance that someone might get their passport for the Dominican Republic.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's not bad, man.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there, but the fingers are crossed that it ends up being a good opportunity to get an Olympic spot.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And then you've got your Canadian girls who are all strong, so it's going to be, man, get your popcorn. If you get a spot at Pan Am's, everybody keep your eye on kiteboarding, women's kiteboarding.
Everything could change. Like it's a fight, and it's gonna continue being a fight just because all of us are very like hungry for it, and all of us are very similar in our skill set.
Excellent. Well, hey, thanks very much for coming on the podcast, and best of luck in your Olympic campaign.
Thank you for having me.